Hi, I'm Megan, a licensed professional counselor, and I'm going to be going over what is ERP and the theory behind it. So ERP, or exposure and response prevention therapy, is considered a gold standard treatment for OCD, but can also be used for many different types of phobias and other anxiety-based disorders, even including social anxiety. So there's two equally important main components to this therapy type. The first one being exposure. So in a general sense, that just means that we are facing our fears, right? We are going to expose ourselves to triggering thoughts, situations, or objects, basically just any trigger that we tend to want to avoid. The other, and again, very important part of what makes this work is response prevention. So it's not just about exposing ourselves to scary situations. It's also about learning how to do that without engaging in any type of safety behaviors, any kind of compulsions to try to eliminate any danger, right? Or make us feel safer by pushing those feelings, pushing those thoughts away. So if you just expose yourself to something, but you're engaging in a lot of safety behaviors, mentally or physically, to try to basically combat that, you're going to notice that even though you're exposing yourself to something scary multiple times, things aren't actually getting better. So response prevention is actually a really key part of what makes this work. I have to learn how to face my fears, but I also have to do it completely on my own without trying to escape those feelings or feared consequences at all. So sounds a little scary. I'm going to also go into a little bit of the theory behind it and what really makes that work and what that should look like. So to better explain the theory behind it, I've got another visual here. This is not exclusive to OCD. This is just a typical person's experience of panic, and to kind of show us and demonstrate how typically someone would overcome it and how we might get stuck in the OCD cycle instead of overcoming those fears, right? So it starts just with any anxiety trigger. So it could be anything. I'm going to use an example that a lot of us can probably relate to, whether you have OCD or not, which is public speaking. So let's say I am really afraid of public speaking. I did grad school in COVID, never had to do it, but suddenly I got a really important job that I love that is going to require me to lead meetings. So I have to kind of deal with that. Now, the day I get assigned that meeting, I am probably going to be anxious about it for sure, but that anxiety is really going to start peaking the week of, and it's probably going to get really intense the day before I have to do my presentation, right? Now, again, this job is really important to me. So if I do go ahead and I allow myself to face that fear, as scary as it is, and actually do my presentation, a few things happen, right? I actually just start doing it. Typically, you'll notice that about halfway through whatever you're doing that you were afraid of, you're starting to get less stressed, right? You're actually engaging in the behavior, things are going okay. So you feel a little more confident. As you finish your presentation, we're starting to already drop down, and we get a lot of feedback, and we figure out what actually happened. I was so afraid of doing my presentation because I thought I would get fired. I thought I would bomb. I thought everyone would hate it, or I'd be so embarrassed. But what actually happened when I did it? Well, I did fine. Right? I got a little bit of some feedback for next time, but everyone was really happy with my work and encouraged me for doing this for the first time. And now I feel more confident, right? Now, the next time I go to do my presentation, I will probably still feel pretty nervous, but this whole peak is going to be less intense the second time, right? Because I've already done it. I know that hey, I could probably handle doing another presentation. It was really rough, but I did it the first time and there weren't any problems. The 50th time I do a presentation for my job, I'm probably not getting almost any anxiety, right? That is not because the presentation got any easier. It's because I have faced that fear so many times that I've become desensitized to it. In ERP, we tend to use the word habituation, which basically means I got used to it, right? I have faced this fear so many times that it's not scary to me. I can handle it. There's not much fear that comes up doing it, even though it's the same task the whole time, all right? So that's what we want to do with exposure therapy, is really expose you to your fears without escaping that in any way, and actually allow you to build the confidence of having worked through it yourself and figuring out what happens, right? Am I actually able to do it if I push myself? Now, you'll see if you are not able to do that, you're going to stay stuck in this mini cycle here, right? So this represents the OCD cycle, but also kind of any anxiety cycle, right? Which is, instead of giving my big presentation, if instead of doing it, I actually call out sick to avoid having to face my own anxiety about it, I am going to feel relieved for a while, right? I might go home, I called out sick, I'm relaxed, I feel really good, but I still want to keep this job. So the next month when I have to lead another meeting, because I never learned to face that fear, I'm going to get just as nervous, if not even more than last time, right? Because in my brain, I've now learned you really couldn't handle that. And look what happened last time. You couldn't even do the presentation. You called out sick. So maybe you don't have it in you, right? Maybe you can't face that fear. So instead of being stuck in that cycle of having the same amount of fear, if not more, time and time again, with ERP, we want to break out of that cycle again by actually facing our fears and figuring out what happens, right? So we're not engaging in compulsions. We're not doing anything to escape it. We're just doing it and seeing what happens, right? If I have an intrusive thought and I face that fear, do I actually end up acting on that intrusive thought? There's only one way to find out, and that's that I have to actually do it, right? So with ERP, we do take things step by step. You may not be facing your biggest fear the first time, right? Typically, we want to start off with things that are going to be challenging but doable and work our way up into increasingly difficult situations until we are able to face those really big fears. So I am going to do additional videos on more of a step-by-step guide of how to actually do ERP by yourself, but I did just want to provide a little bit of the theory behind it, right? So again, the whole key is just learning to desensitize yourself to these intrusive thoughts, to these fear triggers, and to stop avoiding it. Avoidance is one of the biggest compulsions, and it can make OCD so much worse over time, and it typically leads to our lives becoming smaller and smaller. So we want to learn how to stop avoiding, how to face those fears without our compulsions, and again, work through those symptoms so that we can become free from OCD.